Hey guys, welcome back to the Mountain Nights. My name is Shahid. Today I will be talking about something called as trekking peak. I have come across many people who have been referring a particular peak with a trekking peak. So they have been designating various peaks as technical peaks and trekking peaks, for our instance. So today with me, one of my friend and fellow mountaineer would be joining, and we will be talking about the various factors that should be taken into consideration before designating a peak as a trekking or hiking peak or a technical peak. So, and we will be sharing our understanding over the same topic. So, joining with me is Jerry Pothen. Hi Jerry, welcome back to the Mountain Nights.
Hi, Shahid.
How are you? Good to see you after such a long time.
Long time. I mean, we've been talking a lot, but
Yeah.
I'm seeing you after a long time.
Yes. I hope everything well at your side in Chennai.
Yeah, hot and humid, just like you love it.
Is it? Because we have
Just
been living
joking.
in extremely cold environment, and even in
Yeah,
the month of May, we are still in upper warmers.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Anyways,
missing
Jerry,
missing the cold.
yeah.
Yeah.
So let's hope everything gets well soon, and we'll be back for
Soon.
our mountaineering
Yeah.
expeditions.
So we can switch places. I could go to the cold places, and you can visit the summer beaches with your wife.
Yes. Oceans.
Joking.
Okay. Okay. Anyways, okay, Jerry. Let's start with our topic of discussion today. So, Jerry, our my motto of contacting you today is that I want to know your viewpoints. What is your understanding upon something that is called as trekking peak? I have heard many people saying while referring to a particular peak that that particular peak is a trekking peak, right? So I just want you to throw light on this particular thing. That what do you understand by a trekking peak? That what kind of peak is a trekking peak? When would you call a peak trekking peak? And what are the other factors that you think are necessary to name a particular peak trekking peak or a technical peak? So please.
So, like the name suggests, it's a trekking peak, something that can be trekked. Now, there are many factors according to me. Both you and I, we have climbed easy mountains. We have climbed difficult mountains also, where you need specialized climbing equipment and special skills
Mhm.
to ascend the mountain.
Mhm.
The fact that a peak is called a trekking peak um, is what classifies it as a trekking peak is if you're able to trek on it.
Yeah.
In my opinion, if you're able to walk, even if you're using an ice axe as a third leg or for self arrest, if you are able to walk with or without crampons, I would call it a trekking peak. Now, at any point, if it involves technical climbing, whether you're fixing rope on a steep slope in an expedition style climb, or if you're front pointing with ice axes, 4 point climbing, then to me that is a very technical peak. And then you go according to all the various grading systems, like the Russian grading system or the Alpine grading system, the French, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
But as long as you can walk a particular peak from base camp to a high camp, or from base camp right to the summit, it is a trekking peak. Now, another aspect of this would be the peak that I'm able to walk. Maybe I'm able to walk on a 55-degree slope, walk up.
Mhm.
But another person may not be so confident about, walking zigzag up to the top. I've done a lot of peaks where we haven't fixed the route and we are able to walk on fairly steep slope. But some people who have climbed with me, they don't have the confidence to pull it off. Now, for
Mhm.
such people, we may have to, fix a rope, not only on the ascent, maybe sometimes on the descent. They feel a certain, they don't feel very secure coming down on a 50 or a 55-degree slope, even though to me it's not steep. To you, it
Yeah.
may not be very steep. So maybe we'll have to belay them down. So one man's technical peak may be another man's walking peak.
Yeah.
The fact is, if person A can walk all the way down, all the way up to the summit and down. To him, it's a trekking peak. To me, if I have to make a technical ascent
Hmm.
with or without fixed rope,
Yeah.
but at least if I have to front point, if I have to do 4 point climbing, or even if I'm not doing 4 point climbing, if I'm climbing with one axe, two crampons on a fairly steep slope, where I
Hmm.
have to, like in rock climbing, I have to use holds.
Hmm.
In an alpine environment, I'm using my ice tools, my
Hmm.
crampons, my front points, and the pick of my ice axe. If these are involved,
Yeah.
3 or 4 points, then I
Yeah.
would call it a technical ascent. Even if
All right.
it's not vertical, even if it's not, an overhanging terrain, even if it's near vertical, steep, 50, 60, 70 degrees, mixed rock, mixed ice, I would call it technical. If you can walk, it's a trekking peak.
All right. So ultimately, what I can understand is, according to you, a peak would differentiate itself as a trekking peak the moment you start using some technique in order to ascend.
Yes.
Right? It's not necessary that one should be using very high skills or one should be using easy skills. Right? The moment the skills are into use in order to progress your ascent, it becomes a technical peak. Whereas on the
Um,
other hand,
yes.
if there are no skills utilized and you're able to walk in order to ascend easily without using any specialized skill, without using any specialized skills, so it would be okay to keep that particular peak in the category of trekking peak.
I would say so too. I would
Yeah.
just make some exceptions.
Yeah.
Like for example, there is this peak known as Ibn Sina.
Yeah.
It's in Central Asia, and
Mm.
it's very high, 7,134 meters. All around the world, it is marketed as a trekking peak. They say
Okay.
it's the highest, trekking peak in the world. I disagree,
Okay.
because not just the angle, the gradient of the slope. There are
Mm.
other factors like, say, the route between Camp 2 and Camp 3 is
Mm.
heavily crevassed, and
Mm.
it's highly avalanche prone.
Mm.
So, in order to negotiate the crevasses, you
Mm.
have to anchor and set up ladders. So,
Yeah.
in a way, it is technical, even though the climbing skills involved may
Yeah.
not warrant, technical skills.
Mm.
But there are some technicalities involved. Other
Yeah.
than that, you have the same, issues with altitude, because
Yeah.
7,000 plus at that latitude. This
Yeah.
is like higher latitudes, close to,
Yeah.
in the somewhere in Russia,
Yeah.
erstwhile Russia, now Central Asia.
Mm.
So the toll it takes on your physique is a lot. So
Yes.
yes, it is a hiking peak, but there are a lot of technicalities involved. These are exceptions, but generally, I agree with what you said. If you are able to hike to the summit or
Yeah.
anywhere on that slope, it is a hiking peak.
Okay. So it's not necessary that, like you said, if you take a particular peak, right? If you are able to ascend and reach till the summit without using any technique, by just simply walking, if you're able to ascend and reach the summit just without with the help of your normal walking, so for you it's a non-technical peak. To be
Yes.
more specific, for you it's a hiking peak.
Hiking.
Whereas on the other hand, for another individual, let's say for the sake of example, let's say me, on the same peak, if I am not able to ascend with normal walking, and there is a requirement for me to use my technique, irrespective difficult technique or easy technique, the moment I'm using my technique, right? So for me, it could become a technical peak.
For you, yes.
Yeah, right. So in nutshell, the crux of the overall conclusion seems to me is something like this: that one peak could be technical for you, the same peak could not be technical for somebody else. It's
Yes.
totally upon an individual. If he
Yes.
is using his techniques, be it easy techniques or difficult techniques, complicated techniques, for him that peak could become technical. Whereas on the other hand, if somebody is able to negotiate that difficult region, let's say the crevasse region, the technical region, the so-called technical region for other person, if he is able to negotiate the same region without doing any technical stuff, a normal walking, for him it would obviously be a hiking peak.
I would say so, but the only caveat I would add to that is, Let's say a peak like Chamser. It's very high, 6,650 meters, and nowhere on that peak, nowhere, if you take any route anywhere,
Yeah.
is the gradient more than 30 or 35 degrees.
Okay.
Now, 95% of the people should be able to walk that slope.
Yeah.
But I have come across instances of people who just sit down. To them, 35 degrees is steep.
Of
To
course.
say that it is technical for him, it's just
Yes.
ridiculous, because 35 degrees, you should be able to walk.
Yeah.
If you cannot walk, you should not be there in the mountains.
Yes, that's
We
true.
cannot make, a walking peak technical simply
Yes.
because you. When I say you, I'm not talking about you,
Of course.
whoever it is. So yes, one man's walking peak can be another man's trekking peak,
Yeah.
but you cannot, for example, say a 25-degree gradient, a 25 or 30-degree gradient cannot be technical for anyone.
Right.
But
Right.
I have come across instances of people who have employed me to
Yeah.
guide them,
Yeah.
who just give up and they just
Yeah.
sit down. They want to be roped up
Yeah.
because they think it's too steep, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
But
So
ultimately, it becomes technical for them
for
as
them,
per
yeah,
their capabilities. As per their
I
capabilities.
would say, go back, prepare, and come back instead of
Same peak.
changing the technicality of the peak.
Yeah. The same peak could be non-technical for them once they are in better position
Better
as
prepared.
compared to before.
Yes.
Yeah. So ultimately, the point is that we cannot give a particular peak the tagline forever, that claiming that this particular peak is technical or that is not technical or that is
For example, if I know, like you and I, we know each other.
yeah,
Even when we are working with someone,
yeah,
you in your institutes with students, or me with people who climb with me or ski with me,
yeah,
I obviously interview them. You obviously interact with your students,
yeah,
and we know their capabilities, their what skill set they have.
yeah,
So we can, in a way, tell them, okay, this is a hiking peak. You should be able to do it. This is a technical peak, but you have the skills to negotiate it. This is the grade, PD or AD minus or AD plus. I think you can do it. I think you should train more. So along with their skill set, you have an advice or a recommendation or an affirmation that
mm,
whether you should try it or whether you can go for it or whether you have to improve. So yeah, so
all
you,
right.
you you
So
can to an extent say this peak is a hiking peak for you. You can do it or you can't do it or you should get better.
yeah. So finally, I mean, it solely depends, or more or less, or largely depends upon the individual's capabilities, climbing
Ye-
skills, physical stamina, his
Yes,
mental aptitude. So,
yes,
in nutshell, his individual capabilities.
yes. How well he's conditioned,
Yeah.
how well he acclimates at altitude, all those
Yes.
things.
Right. Right. Okay. So it gives a broader and clearer picture upon this particular thing that I have been hearing since very long time, that this particular peak is a trekking peak. Oh, that peak is an easy peak, right?
Yeah.
So I have been wondering on this particular thing since very long time.
Yeah.
What should be the criteria to categorize peak, whether it is a trekkable peak or is a technical peak? So finally, we have something, to understand more. That it's the individual's
Layman's
capability.
definition, if you can walk it, it's
Yeah,
a walking peak.
yeah.
If you have to climb it, it's technical.
Yeah, right. All right,
Yes.
Jerry, thanks a lot for sharing your views on this particular
Great, man. Always will.
subject. And
Yeah.
I hope the viewers get to know something more about this particular thing, and
Sure.
they are forced, or they, ask themselves to have a broader aspect or broader views about this particular thing. Whether a particular, what should categorize a peak as technical or hiking peak.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, Jerry, we'll be joining for more such discussions down the line.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I just wish you good luck, stay safe, and see you soon.
You too.